Welcome back to the Wolff Den presented by Win Again Academy. I'm Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Today we welcome Chris Olsen to the show. Welcome to the Den. How are you?
I'm good, Matt. How you doing today?
Good.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we met at a Panthers game through a staff link event with Heather and Abe. Great organization. I got my Panthers hat on, and big game tonight for the Panthers as they open up the Eastern Conference Finals. But for the people in the audience who don't know who you are, give us a quick intro and then we'll get to it.
Sure. I grew up in South Florida as a native, one of the very rare few. But recently, a couple years back, started a company that does healthcare navigation. It's called navces. You can visit us at navces.com. But it does healthcare navigation. It's a very unique product that we've just brought to market. Literally about 3 years of research and development and beta testing to bring it to market. But it actually has an interesting personal story behind it, how it got to market with our chief medical officer, which I'm sure we'll get into. But essentially what we do is we work with employers, such as StaffLink does, but we do something very uniquely different in that we navigate the employees through essentially within their employer network. So if an employer had a health plan, United Healthcare, Blue Cross Blue Shield, very familiar one, within the network, several doctors, and not all of those doctors or hospitals are top notch. And what we do is we measure pricing and we measure the quality of the doctors, and then we give rewards to the employees in the form of cash to that provider, which is typically a high quality provider. And those rewards help them pay for those medical expenses. So it's really a triad of a big win is what we've tried to create.
But business to business, that's where you guys operate.
We do operate business to business, but a lot of what we do is offer it to brokers and consultants at the end of the day. CFOs, HR directors, we do market to them direct, but a lot of our business comes through their consultants that place the health insurance business, a lot of times place the payroll companies or the PEOs, such as a StaffLink in that arena, which is hence why how we met at the event for the hockey game with StaffLink.
But I'm on my own. If I want to get a health care service, I'm not going to you guys. I'm going to someone who offers the plans on a wider scale, correct? Or it froze up a bit here. Are you there? Can you hear me? Looks like we lost Chris for a second here. We'll try and get him back in a minute. Some technical difficulties here. The beauty of live streaming here. So give us a minute and we'll try and get Chris back here. Big game for the Panthers tonight again, starting out in Carolina against the Hurricanes. Big win for the Heat last night. Eastern Conference Finals in the NBA, and here we are. We're back.
Hey, sorry about that. I think we just had a glitch there with internet. Basic technology issues, I guess.
What I was trying to say is if I'm looking for healthcare information, I'm not coming to navces, right?
If you're shopping for a health plan for your company, right, a Blue Cross Blue Shield or a Humana, you would not come to us. We come in secondary on top of that. So you've purchased your health plan. You know that you're with United Healthcare, right? And within United Healthcare, they have a network of doctors, right? And essentially what we've done as consumers, as employers, is we've purchased those, right? And we We deliver that very expensive product. Some of it costs up to what a car would be, a BMW car payment a month, right? We support it as an employer, and we roll this very expensive plan out that's a great benefit to them, but we explain it to them, right, for less than 15 minutes or 30 minutes in an open enrollment. If you look at statistics today, most employers have interaction with their employees on healthcare and the health insurance within their organization twice per year, and it's less than a half an hour. So how can you effectively take a product like that that's so expensive and deliver it to your employees and expect them to navigate it and know everything about it in such a short period of time and in such an infrequent experience for them? So what essentially happens is at the point that you need it, because right, nobody needs it until they're sick, right? I mean, maybe we get preventative, maybe we get some medication, but at the time that you realize you need it and you don't know how to navigate it, it's too late at that point, right? Your average case management for cancer is 18 months out of the workplace, right? When you're diagnosed with cancer, which has a very high misdiagnosis, by the way, which is another aspect of how we started this company, using statistics on misdiagnosis, because obviously if you're misdiagnosed and mistreated, it's a great cost to the company. But essentially, you don't focus on it until it's needed, and at that point, your whole life's falling apart. Your blueprint for life has been ripped apart, and you're heading in a different direction. And some of us have difficulty in even comprehending things when we get in such a desperate situation like that. So where do you go for guidance, the secondary guidance? And we have a saying. We say hospitals are not good at everything, and a good hospital doesn't always mean you get a great doctor. And we could show you statistics where a hospital may be in the 99th percentile for neurosurgery, but in the bottom 10 percentile for bariatric surgery. But the hospital has a great name to it, so you trust it.
I think that's common. You have, the name. You hear about a name, Shands Hospital in Gainesville or Cleveland Clinic. I think it's they've done a good job with their brand, but do we really know what's going on with everything inside of the nurses and all that?
It's perfect that you mentioned Shands, because I'll give you a real life case that we just recently worked on that actually involved Shands. Recently, we had a company up there that had called, the employee had called us, and we engaged them through marketing. So if we send emails and text messages, if you're diagnosed, if you need treatment or surgery, call us before healthcare occurs. Let us guide you through the system. So in this case, this gentleman actually, we call it Carl's story on our website, but he had needed a knee replacement. And by the time he had called us, he was actually already set for surgery at North Florida Regional Medical Center under a certain doctor. I won't mention his name. And he was already set for pre-op. Well, he called us, and at that point, because we consider that a level 3 case, because that's a very expensive surgery, typically about $50,000, and requires an inpatient overnight stay. So we did the research, and we actually found that UF Shands Hospital had the same surgery, but the facility cost was nearly $17,600 less. Okay. And so in the world that we live in, the physician doesn't drive the cost difference. The anesthesiologist doesn't drive the cost difference. It's really the facility fee. And in this case, we were able to get Carl. His employer gave him $1,000 reward for him moving from North Florida Regional to Shands under the chief orthopedic surgeon to have the surgery there. And the company's savings on the claim to the health plan was nearly $17,600. So for the $1,000 the employer gave to Carl to have the surgery at that location, they saved $17,400. So their net savings was $16,400 to the health plan. Carl got a better surgery from the chief orthopedic surgeon at a teaching hospital that actually ranked higher in quality for knee replacement surgeries than North Florida Regional Medical Center did at the time. So it was an all-around win, a win for the employer, a win for Carl, and Carl got the best treatment. And essentially that's what we do. And you'd actually be surprised. Those were two different hospital chains, but I could show you hospital chains, Advent Health, two hospitals in Tampa that are 8 miles from each other that actually do the same surgery. And one's for heart stents is ranked in the bottom percentile, the bottom 10 percentile of all hospitals in the US. And if you go to Advent Health, at I think it's Westlake, or I have the name of it, they're in the top 81 percentile for heart stents, and they're 8 miles apart, same healthcare system. So we do cost and quality measurements for those employees and then deliver them high quality healthcare at the best price. And it ends up being a net savings to the company's bottom line.
It sounds like you guys should get in touch with I have sidecar insurance right now, which is they give me a card, I pay, and then they pay me 80%. They pay 80%, and I pay 20% when afterwards you just have to submit something. But it sounds like helping their customers out with trying to find this would be very beneficial. I know it would be for me as someone who hesitates to go because I have no idea what it's going to cost me when I go to a doctor, which, by the way, I don't, I'm just trying to search around, and who knows, I'm just taking a guess,
Well, and that's it. So, right, you could drive down the street and there's two gas stations, one on the right, one on the left, and both of them have cost and quality, right? And I say there's unleaded, right? And there's premium, and you know how much it is for each one. Unfortunately, with our healthcare systems or a hospital system, you don't have that same transparency. So and that's the secret of the system and the dominancy of those I would say monopolistic type of insurance companies. There's 5 of them. There's competition between them, but it's very limited. I mean, it would be very difficult for you to start an insurance company today and compete against, what we call the large 5 insurance companies. But their secret is the negotiated prices between them and the medical providers has been their closely held secret forever in a third-party payer system. So those things aren't transparent to you, like you just said, Matt. Our product goes and it faces really employers today, but you're right, for a consumer like yourself, anybody that consumes healthcare, what we're doing is bringing that transparency to it. You'd be shocked. A chest CT scan in Miami-Dade County cost variance is 1,600% within the same network, typically. You name the networks, United Healthcare, Aetna, we can show you that transparency. So in your case, you're responsible, like you said, for cost sharing, right? You're responsible for 20%. The insurance company pays the other 80%. But 20% of $200, right, is $40, right? And 20% of $100 is $20. So what would you rather pay? And there's no quality difference for MRIs. You understand? So it's an image. It's really the quality behind it is the physician that reads it. So I could show you cost differences of CT scans or MRIs that are just drastic. And if you're paying 20%, don't you want to know?
I mean, the silly question is, why aren't the healthcare companies doing this? They have access to it.
Number one question we're asked, Matt, because, and it's funny you say that. So the other day I got an email from a large insurance carrier, and they were touting how the vastness and the largeness, the oceanic boundlessness of their network is why it's so high quality. But I know, sitting behind here, when I look at data, that 66% of that massive amount of doctors and physicians and hospitals that you've given us to give us choice, that about 66% of them are low quality and high cost. Look, not every doctor, like I said, graduated top of their class. And so they're somehow trying to expect the public to think that because they have access to all of these doctors and because they have choice and freedom of choice, that they're going to get the best quality. Yeah, that's probably right. We want access to the best doctors. We want them in the network. But what you're not telling me is about 66% of them are low quality and high cost. And you can't go against yourself, right? You can't have a large network and then influence people to some physicians or some providers and disinfluence them against other providers, right? Those other providers in which you were kind of discriminating against, if you will, because they were lower quality, will just leave the network and reduce choice. So it's the chicken or the egg for them.
So do they not want you to be in this market?
I would say no. But it's a third party. They don't bother us. As a matter of fact, we're supported by them in their wellness programs. We do what they can't do in public, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, it's more what they
Believe it
don't
or not,
want.
what we do helps them be more profitable because it curtails cost, but it also helps the employer save money. They just can't do it and keep their same business model at the same time.
Yeah, I use the word can't. I would say they won't or don't want to do it more than can't. They have the.
You got it.
Yeah, I would say it's more of that. And healthcare, the importance of healthcare from an employer benefit point of view is crazy. The amount of people you hear will stick with a company, no matter how miserable they are, because it's good healthcare. Paid time off is another one. That's a whole other conversation. But the healthcare is it, and people will not leave. They got good healthcare. Their benefits are good, and people will stay at a job they probably shouldn't stay at. So it's smart for an employer to really put forward the best type of program. I think I told you this. We had a program where I think it cost me maybe $80 or $160 a month, and that's literally all I had to pay. I don't even know how. I'd have to ask my boss, who I still talk to.
That must have been 20 years ago.
Yeah, but it was very simple. This is what you pay, and you go, wherever. And I'm not sure that limiting people to where they can go is the worst thing if that network is good enough. And that's all relative anyway, but I think it's to the point you said, reduce something from, 2/3 of the stuff that's not worth even contacting. And people don't want too many options also. I want lesser options, but I want those options to be good.
You got it. And unfortunately, the system's been built that I mean, you see it today, right? An HMO type of product is restricted to typically within the state because HMO is more controlled by state governance, whereas PPOs that are written on insurance paper are nationwide plans. And you'll see it today, even in the aspect of the plan designs that the carriers offer. HMOs, believe it or not, if it's an open access HMO and you're operating within your state of Florida, they're actually better contracts for you. They have a lot more protections. But if you go out to the consumer's still programmed that the PPO plan that offers you access nationwide is still the best plan. And I would tell you that's very subjective. And it's very subjective because it all depends on how you get sick, doesn't it? Right? Because if you get cancer and you want to travel outside of the state to one of the centers of excellence, yes, that PPO is great. But if you're traveling outside of the states and you have a non-emergency and you end up in the emergency room, the carrier can deny your claim. So there's some gaps in that where the protections out of state or even in the state on what we call insurance paper that are written on PPOs have less protections versus HMOs. And I guess a more clear explanation would be is if you went in for the emergency room and you were on a PPO plan, and just so happens for that day, the anesthesiologist, they had to fill in with a third-party company, and that third-party company was not affiliated with the hospital, and they weren't contracted with your insurance company. Well, you just went into an in-network hospital and an in-network emergency room. You get home thinking everything's covered, but then you get this bill for an out-of-network anesthesiologist. But you went to an in-network facility and you're confused about what just happened there. Well, the patient's actually in that case on a PPO is responsible to pay that to the anesthesiologist. Whereas if you're on an HMO plan, there's protections within those contracts in the state where that anesthesiologist has to accept the state reimbursement off of that HMO and can't balance bill. It's illegal. So the world's turned upside down in health insurance. It's gotten very complex, but there's many holes opening up now because as things become more unaffordable, they want to cover less. And so they open more gaps, which makes it more risky for the consumer and to end up in a situation like I just described there.
Yeah, it's, to me, healthcare, we don't need to get into the weeds of it with, Canada and universal healthcare. It feels like government should get involved, I think, in healthcare. I looked up before, United Healthcare, it makes like $36 billion in profit a year. That's a crazy number. This is healthcare. This is trying to keep the health of your people. I mean, that's crazy to me.
So it is an astronomical number, but it actually is almost about 2% of the money that flows through that company, United Health Group. So if you look at it comparatively to any other for-profit type of business in America, it's the least profitable. It's just a huge number because it's trillions of dollars, right? That the healthcare system's 20% of the U.S. economy. So think of it, it's trillions of dollars. So while it looks like it's a huge profitable number there, that's actually the 2% comparatively to other businesses that would have 30 or 40% margins or 20% margins.
Well, that number, from my understanding, is the profit, not the revenue.
Correct, profit. But the number that you represented, what did you say it was? 30 billion?
36 billion.
Yeah, that's about 2% of the money that goes through there. And it's highly regulated. If you recall Obamacare, the PPAC, Patient Protection Affordability Act, had limited the profits of the company. Once again, it said that every dollar that they collected on claims, they had to pay out 85% in claims. And then whatever, if there was any money left over, they have to redistribute that back, I would say aggregated across the risk pool. So actually employers, if an insurance company is very profitable in a particular state, and it's done by state, will get a check back out of that. So it's very regulated. And while you may think that healthcare should not be for profit, the profit there is very minimal. I would tell you that the drug companies and the hospitals at that have much higher margins than the insurance companies in this space.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's all related. If people stop paying X amount for surgeries, then they'd have to lower it. Or if the insurance companies weren't going to pay, which they're the ones who have to pay, right? They're paying mostly. Sure. But are you saying that they couldn't lower the cost and still keep that same low profit percentage?
The cost driving is, again, it's not the cost drive. Here's an example. Humana Healthcare, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, just announced at the beginning of the year that they're getting out of the commercial health insurance business. We thought it was in the state of Florida, but it's nationwide. They're exiting the business. So a lot of people think Humana, big commercial insurance company, making trillions of dollars, billions of dollars. The fact is they could not get profitable in that space. So you just had one of the largest four. I mean, the largest four or the largest five are the Blue Crosses, the Kaisers, the United Healthcare, the Aetna, right? Cigna, and Humana was one of those in the commercial space. They just exited. So, and why? They couldn't find a profit within it. So where is the money? A lot of it's coming from, where's the money being made? The drug companies, the providers, the hospitals, not necessarily the individual doctors, I would say. But again, we have a for-profit healthcare system, and I don't think that's bad. I think it actually creates a little bit of competition and quality within it.
What's the future of healthcare? Is it positive? I mean, where do you think we're going in the next 5-10 years as a resident in the United States?
My theory on it, and certainly after watching a company like Humana have to exit the market due to profits, is that the Patient Protection Affordability Act, Obamacare, was really made to collapse the system, and collapse the system for them to come in and say, look, see, nothing works. We've tried this, we've tried that, we've tried it over 2 decades, and it just doesn't work. But I think that the insurance companies are fighting back, and whenever you zig, right, they're going to zag. And I knew that immediately as soon as this was passed. And what I mean by that is if you try, and they've always had the history of that. If you try to starve them in one area, they're going to find food in another. And that's exactly what's starting to develop in the marketplace. So the law was really governed towards fully insured health plans, and fully insured health plans have to abide to the ACA rules. But for self-insured employers, they don't have to. And this is where our product comes in. And what I mean by that is not a lot of the same mandates and taxes apply to a self-insured company. So what's happening now is the carriers are saying, well, listen, let's just create a product outside of the ACA that's self-funded, that looks and smells exactly like a fully insured healthcare plan. How do we build that product and insulate the customer like we did under a fully insured plan? They operate a bit differently, and they've been able to figure that puzzle out, and it's evident. And what you're seeing now is, years ago, small employers never would go self-funded. The insurance carriers have created a new product for the middle market called level funding product. And that product is very prevalent. So about 2 years ago, 7% of the small to middle market was on a level funded product. Today, it's 46%. We at navces believe it's going to 80+%. And that's why we believe our product's so important, because once you move from fully insured to level funded, you have a little bit more risk as an employer, and you have a lot more consciousness on how your employees are shopping for healthcare, because you actually do have a risk corridor in which you're responsible for claims before reinsurance kicks in. So you have more responsibility, but in some cases less cost. I would say more responsibility in terms of risk, but you end up, if you're responsible about it, can have very, very good costs moving forward and less tax liability, and you can operate outside the ACA. So that's developing right now in the marketplace. So it's going to be interesting how it plays out, but most of the carriers are trying to get out of those rules and regulations by creating new products that aren't subject to them.
Would there be a case where an organization can offer healthcare to the masses where it wouldn't have to go through your employer, and that's a bigger network, right, of people?
Well,
if it's not as tied to your employer, it feels like it would be better if it's not tied to your employer.
Well, we did have that product prior to the ACA. So if you remember, United Healthcare had a company called Golden Rule back in the day. That was an individual insurance company, but you would have to be underwritten to get into that risk pool. So if you had any pre-existing conditions, you couldn't get into that risk pool, right? And that was really the big issue with healthcare, right? People were being denied because they had pre-existing conditions. But that's what healthcare was prior to that. So you as an individual, Matt, you could apply. If you got into Golden Rule, you'd be added into the risk pool of their 200 or 300,000 other members that lived in the state of Florida, right? And you all shared risk, because not all of you get sick at the same time. I mean, that's really what it is, right? It's the spinning wheel, like the wheel of fortune, and who's it going to stop on? The person it stops on, the rest of us pay for, right at that point, right? And then it spins again.
It's insurance. It's a no-win situation, right? You pay. If you don't use it, you've lost your money. If you are using it, something went wrong, and it's probably not going to be good for you. I want to talk about healthcare in general. It's in the news, and get your thoughts on this. I go to a hospital, and I think that, demand is up for workers there, right? And it pays well, good benefits, schedule, so people want those jobs. And I'm not sure that everyone who has that job should be in it. Doesn't affect the majority of corporate America if you have someone like that, but when you have a hospital like that, it does. Now you have here in Florida where the governor now says you can kind of treat who you want or not. I don't understand fully what that is, but it just sounds like a recipe for disaster. I think we need to sort of eliminate the nurses who would ever even think about, anything like that, and be like, hey, we need to really care about our patients, because you can feel it when someone doesn't, right?
Sure. So that's kind of funny. So let me comment on the nurse part, because as you know, Matt, you met my wife at the Panthers game briefly. She is a nurse, a very recently graduated nurse, and she was going to nursing. She had started nursing school before COVID, but the last year of her nursing program, where they're supposed to do the residency, essentially it was done from home. So as a new nurse, she had no qualification for putting in IVs and doing certain life experience things that you actually had to be in the room to learn how to do, right?
Right.
Fast forward now, she's working as a hired nurse here in a job that required 2 years of nurse experience prior to her applying. She had none. She got the job. She put her first IV in 2 weeks ago. But it goes to show you that the schools and that we're graduating people without the proper tools in place to actually perform the job. And so a lot of them, my wife has had to learn on the job. And I've learned that people are hiring nurses without experience. Why? Because there's a shortage, just as there is of physicians and nurses. And the ones that do have experience are going at a very high cost, which also is driving up the contract costs between the insurance companies and the hospitals, right? Because if those costs go up for labor and for medical supplies, then the hospitals and the providers have to go to the insurance companies and say, hey, well, we need more in our contracts. And if each contract is done by a CPT code, so what's happening is the hospitals are going back now and saying, hey, we want 20% increase on these CPT codes, and the insurance companies are fighting with them. So there's a big dynamic going on with that, and COVID changed a lot of the way the system is, especially, another aspect we talk about today is telehealth. There's been a huge shift to telehealth. Most of us think that's not good long-term, and it's going to create larger misdiagnosis, right?
Yeah,
things are going to go, things aren't going to be found, and they're going to go longer untreated because you didn't have a physical presence in front of your doctor. So there's a lot of complications within the healthcare system now, and I agree with you. The quality of it, it's not what it used to be. I had my whole experience of creating this company came from a hospitalization in 2012, where I had food poisoning and was in the hospital for 4 days and lost 36 pounds and was wheeled out in a wheelchair. It changed my perspective on life, and that's actually how I met our chief medical officer at the end of the day in 2012, believe it or not.
Yeah, healthcare is it's a necessary evil. It's you
will all be consumers of it.
Yeah, but you need it. I know some people who didn't have it. I'm like, that's you could really ruin your whole life if something happens. Although I don't know, maybe I'm not sure. Maybe you don't pay a bill, and I'm sure there's some people who can survive that way.
I say at the end of the day, the United States is one big insurance company anyway for all of us, because the reality is we're all paying for it, and we're all paying for those people who don't have insurance. There's plenty of people that go into hospitals that rack up $200,000, $300,000 bills that leave and never pay them. Somebody has to pay for that, and it comes in the way of federal tax subsidies, state tax subsidies, insurance, commercial insurance. So, most people aren't aware of this, but let me give you one idea, because there was a new concept that came to range. But the cost that Medicare pays versus a commercial insurance company for a specific procedure, do you know the cost difference between those? It's about 240%. So today, if you needed an MRI and you bought it on Medicare pays for that CPT code, the government contracts, because they control the purse. Say the CPT code's $100. United Healthcare or Aetna Healthcare or Cigna Healthcare, their range is between 140 and 240% of that is the price they pay. So that's really where the system is subsidized is through that commercial insurance, because they can only pull so much out of Medicare treating patients. So it's all made up on the commercial side, which is what we just talked about, which is the for-profit side.
Yeah, we can get a whole nother conversation about wasted tax money and wasted money in general with that. I think would be better suited for healthcare, for mental health, for homelessness, whatever it is. I mean, hunger, you name it. There's so much money out there that should be redirected. Some of it is money that we already have and we're spending, and some of it's money, I hate to say, because I don't want to limit how much someone can make, but I think you also have to be reasonable about things. Like, are we paying $20,000 for a ride in an ambulance? Why?
Yep. So we're great at looking at statistics here, but you'd be shocked at how much ambulances are no longer used since the invention of Uber and Lyft.
Yeah. No, I see people, but how is that good? Like, why would you want that?
And Uber and Lyft are going to be there faster, typically.
Yeah, no, for sure. But you're better off in an ambulance with.
Yeah, I mean, certainly if it's respiratory, a heart attack, something like that.
Right,
but I mean, you know, I've seen people jump in an ambulance for a broken wrist. Probably some of you can get in the car or call Uber. I mean, my 3-year-old daughter broke her wrist on the trampoline, and we got in a car and drove to the hospital. You know, but people think it's an emergency. So, and then they get a $20,000 ambulance bill, and what's this? You know, yeah,
Well,
and then find out it wasn't covered.
Yeah, using ambulances when you don't need to, almost like even the courts jammed up with stuff that shouldn't even be in the courts. You know, it's just all that drives up the cost. But we should, you know, I don't know. I can't fix any of this stuff. I just have good ideas about it.
I think at the end of the day, that's our mission, is we're trying to do the public good. You know, these are large insurance companies against smaller employers. They have the leverage, they have the data secrets, they have the data contracts. Again, we're trying to add transparency to it. We can't fix everything, but we can show you and arm your people with knowledge so they make better healthcare decisions. And that's really the mission of what we're trying to do. And again, it's measuring cost, measuring quality, because you know, most employers don't understand that when they hand their employee an insurance card that gives them access to the network. Remember, Obamacare and the PPAC, the Affordability Act, it mandated that every insurance company and every card is unlimited. That's as good as an American Express Black Card to the healthcare system. So you give this card to every employee and they can just go cha-ching, 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 and never look at the price, right? You would never give your salespeople in a company that ability to go out to Vegas to the conference, but stay in the nicest hotel, have the nicest dinners, buy everything for yourself. As a matter of fact, there's nothing you can't buy, right? That just wouldn't happen. But we do that in the healthcare system. So what we're trying to do is at least if you're going to give them that ability, have incentives for them to shop it, to find high quality, to not overpay, and to get better outcomes. It's better for the patient. It's better for the company. It's better for everybody all around.
Yeah, I agree with that. You have a background in coding / software. That's how you got into all of this?
I don't. So I have one of our partners does have a background in coding and computers and analytics and IT. They've built many companies. So one of our partners does. I had some previous experience in another company I built, but I never knew how to write code, but I work very closely with the programmer. So I do a lot of wireframing, the basics, and putting the fundamentals of the software together, but then I hand it off to a programmer to actually code it.
So your background was in the healthcare then?
It actually wasn't. I was an English writing major, ended up going to law school, and believe it or not, my first job was owning a magazine in South Florida. I got into healthcare after my healthcare experience being in the hospital. And so that's kind of how it bled into where I am today. But my background after that, I actually started working for a large insurance company. So I did work at United Healthcare and Cigna Healthcare for many years. And that's really where I learned the trade of, okay, what's going on here? What are the numbers? How this is what I see as a problem. Is there a solution to it? And that was always the transparency of the cost, right? Having a third party payer drove up cost and drove up waste. So I always describe it as, there's defense attorneys that used to work for the state prosecutor. They're always your best defense attorneys because they know what the prosecutor is going to do right before you even get to court, because they used to do that themselves. I feel like I'm in that position. So I worked for the carriers. I know how they zig and zag. I know how they develop products. I know where they make their profits. And I know how to teach people to zig and zag around those to optimize their healthcare, because healthcare, we look at inflation today, but healthcare's always had one of the highest medical inflation rates ever. Most employers see their healthcare increase from 6 to 8 to 12% per year. We see people at 20%. Incredible. So that's really what's over the last 30 years, 3 decades, healthcare costs, the rising cost of healthcare is really what has sucked all the air out of the room on increasing wages, because it all went to healthcare.
Yeah,
most economists would agree with that.
Healthcare gets a bad rap, and some of it's deserving. We look at the stuff you see in the movies like The Rainmaker, not paying on claims, and but I mean the lives that are saved, and the quality of life that people can have even through debilitating diseases and injuries from healthcare is I think we need to focus a lot on that too, but also hold the industry accountable and make sure that people are getting the treatment that they need and deserve at a reasonable rate. It shouldn't, trying to stay healthy and stay alive shouldn't cost you your life savings, or it's a difficult road to navigate. So that's why I think you guys helping is a big piece.
I think on the medicine side, I'll give you a humble experience. I recently walked into a new physician that I found. Unfortunately, my old physician got cancer, believe it or not, and had to stop practicing. And so I had to find a new primary care doctor. And I went to our chief medical officer, and he sent me to this new gentleman that I'm going to, and he's the doctor's. But I had walked in and we started talking. He's like, "Tell me about yourself and this." And I start telling, I go through, and he's asking me all these different questions. And he said, "How old are you?" I said, "Well, I'm 46." And he looks at me and goes, 100 years ago, the average lifespan was 46. That's what he looked at me and said. And that was shocking to me. I was like, 100 years ago, your average age died at 46. And I'm 46 now. So it was his lead into, hey, get ready. These are the years where you're going to have to start taking blood pressure medication, cholesterol medications, and you're hitting that area where we start to introduce medicines that actually double that lifespan, that bring you from the 46 to the 80 to the 90 years old. And exciting enough, I heard the other day that they expect advances in medicine are coming so fast that they expect within the next 20 years, we'll be able to double that again. So I think it's 79 today in America. So they expect to be able to double that in 20 years. That's shocking.
I'm not even sure I want to, but I guess we'll have to see what
we'll see what those drugs look like and how expensive they are, right?
Yeah. What does the quality of life, what does that look like too? Because Chris Rock had a funny thing about life expectancy, and like you retire at this, but the life expectancy for black males was like 60 something. You only get 2 years to enjoy the rest of it. Yeah, I don't know. That's a interesting conversation. People are on all sides of it. Do I want to live to be 90 or 100? I don't know. What does my life look like then? Am I, mentally there? Am I physically there? It just depends. Maybe for me, if at the end of life I could sit for a year or two and do nothing but watch Netflix and all the shows and movies I want to watch, I don't know.
You remind me of the comedian Dennis Leary. He did a stand up years ago, and he said it was about smoking, but he related smoking to like, what does it matter anyway? I don't want to get that old anyway. That's the adult diaper and chair paralysis years. I don't want to live through that, right? So I agree. It'll be interesting what that looks like and how that expansion of life quality and the length of how long we live will play out, especially with lifestyle.
But I worry about the next 15 years of my life instead of the 15 after that. I'm 47, just because I think regardless of what the advances are, how good, I'm still the best years of my life are going to be now than then. And think about all the experience I want to do, whether it's go to, attend events, games, music festivals, go on a cruise, whatever it is. I'm probably going to enjoy it more this next 15 years than the 15 after that. But there are people who want to live forever, and they save up till their retirement so they can really go gangbusters. And, when you're retired, that's obviously a personal choice. What we want to do is have it so you can live as long as you want to live and not have to suffer through that. I watched
have fun while you're doing it. You can. It's funny because you and I are the same age. I just turned 47, and I actually got to the point where I'm just like, things have been so challenging to get where I am, and I've worked so hard in so many years. I think I'm gonna, and this is recent, I said, I think I'm gonna start to have fun with this, right? and relax more with it, and not be so uptight, and just kind of, maybe it'll help me look at it from a different perspective. But my attitude is I never really want to retire, because it's I enjoy working, but I enjoy going on vacation, and I think I could do that and I'm going to do that as long as I can. Yeah. I'm not the one to work as hard as I can up to age 65 and then just stop. I think I'd be bored after that.
No, it's expensive. Retirement. That's the whole thing about retirement being expensive. If you think about it now, if we're working 8 hours, let's just say you're working 8 hours a day. The time and opportunity for you to spend money, it's not a lot. But now when you take all that away, what are you going to do? You're spending a lot more money. Yeah, so it's difficult. But yeah, I think, if you can if you're doing something that you like and it's not feeling like a chore, which that's not easy to do. Most people don't. I mean, you and I, right, we run a company. It's 24/7, at least in your mind, even if you're not always there. I go on vacation, I could put stuff away, but I'm still thinking about stuff. Whereas when I was
you're better than me. I still got my laptop out on vacations, but
I'll bring it, but there are times when I would be like, look, I'm going to step away from it. But back in the day when I was with a company, I didn't care. When that clock hit, I was done. And until Monday came, and I used to dread Mondays. Now I'm excited for Mondays because that's when business happens, as opposed to on the weekends. You get all like pumped up and ready for the week. But it's good to help. When you have something that's helping people, which navces ultimately does, it's a good feeling. You probably get a ton of stories about the people who talk to you about, hey, it's not even always about the money. It could just be about, finding a better doctor or finding someone who could see them a month sooner because these other doctors have these long wait lists. Those stories have got to be probably, I would think, what's most fulfilling.
And you just hit it on the head. And it's actually not all about the price. To us, the price is our secondary methodology. The first is quality. So if we find two quality hospitals, one maybe is a little lower ranked and another one's higher ranked, and it's a little bit more and it's more expensive, we'll send them to the more expensive one just because of the quality. Because actually, bad quality can drive high costs. So it's actually worth it for us to get high quality first. And what I mean by that is, if you have to go back and do that surgery again, which is very often the case with musculoskeletal in a lot of cases, surgeries, which are one of the highest misdiagnoses, that's going to cost the company again and put the patients, not only that, through that hardship again. I mean, one surgery is enough, but have to go do it again because you picked the wrong facility or the wrong doctor. That's a mistake you don't want to make and could actually be more costly. So we look at it in fundamentals if it's a rankable, and there's certain things that don't have the ability to measure quality. So only inpatient.
I was going to ask, how do you measure quality?
So the Medicare went from a fee-for-service to a quality-based reimbursement, and Center for Medicare and Medicaid had to create benchmarks for physicians and providers and all different types of quality measures. So they created MIPS scores. And those MIPS scores measure facilities based upon procedures, based upon attribution. So that's how we measure that. But it only, unfortunately, measures today inpatient services and not outpatient services. So on outpatient services, we have to do our independent research on the doctor and the quality, which we use other tools for, and then we use other tools to do the pricing for those physicians. But if it's an inpatient stay where the patient's staying overnight, you had mentioned one, and you had mentioned expediting a surgery, but which I'll get into. But in that case, we can measure the quality of the facility and the physician at that facility based upon national rankings and how many other hospitals perform that surgery and where they fall within that placement. So I could tell you that in the United States today, based upon a recent case we worked on, there's 1,112 hospitals that do heart stents in the U.S. We just found a hospital that's ranked 200 of the 1,112. That makes them better than 81% of all U.S. hospitals that perform health stents. So, of course, we sent the member there versus the other hospital that was close to 8-9 miles away that was in the bottom 80 percentile of U.S. hospitals that perform that. So we use MIPS scores to measure that and then send them there. And you'd be shocked. It's really easy to talk to somebody and say, hey, by the way, where your doctor or your physician had referred to for bariatric surgery is in the worst 90 percentile hospitals in the country that perform the surgery, but just 5 miles down the road, there's one that's in the top 90 percentile of all hospitals that do bariatric surgery. And by the way, your employer will give you $1,000 if you go there instead of the other one. Which one do you want to go to? When you're armed with that information, it's very easy to make a better decision about your healthcare. And that's the problem we have, or the challenge we have within our system is most physicians, they refer vertically within their own their health ecosystem, right? So you have ACH, right? If you're seeing an ACH doctor and you need a surgery, they're likely to refer you within their hospital system.
Right, of course.
Not knowing that Cleveland Clinic, which is a completely different hospital system, is much better at that procedure and ranks in the top 90 percentile versus you referring that individual within your own healthcare system. And that's a challenge. That's the business part about it, right? The for-profit system that actually may taint that part. But let me give you another quick analytic story here. But one of the most profound things is Walmart years ago had tons of musculoskeletal surgeries that was costing them obviously millions and millions of dollars in surgery for their employees. And so what they started to do is say, anybody that needs a musculoskeletal, hip replacement, back surgery, back fusion, knee replacement has to go to one of our centers of excellence, or it's just not covered by the health plan. Well, 50% of those patients that got to those centers of excellence didn't need surgery once they got there. That were originally prescribed surgery by a different orthopedic surgeon prior to that. So imagine that savings to Walmart in sending those patients now to centers of excellence for musculoskeletal, and they get there and they say, well, listen, actually, John Doe, you don't need the surgery on your back. We're going to recommend 6 months of therapy with this type of specific therapeutic design and avoid the surgery altogether. Obviously, the patient has a better experience. Walmart doesn't have to pay for the surgery, which could be tens of thousands of dollars for that. And again, the patient avoids the uncomfortableness of having to go through that experience. So it's shocking how different results come out of different centers of excellence if you can get your people to the right places.
What defines success for you guys? How do you measure success for the company, and where are you guys at now with regards to what you might look like a year from now in your plan, your hope, your projections?
I mean, success for us is helping as many patients and companies as we can. We enjoy doing that. There's actually no better joy than walking in the morning and seeing. We have a board which all the chats come through. So about 90% of people like to go online to chat with us versus call us or discuss through email. I mean, sometimes it bleeds over into email, but we built a proprietary chat system that is HIPAA compliant on our software. So each morning we can come in and see all the different patients that need different helps all across the country in different spectrums. And it's great to see the outcomes of those. Like Carl's story was fantastic, where we got him better healthcare. In that case, we even went even further beyond that and got him another $2,500. So in Carl's case, he had a $4,000 deductible for that surgery. He got $1,000 from the employer through our rewards program to go and change hospitals from North Florida to Shands Hospital. But in that case, we were also able to find a program within his insurance company, which was AvMed, a program called Smart Shopper, and we were able to get him another $2,500. So we got Carl $3,500 of his $4,000 surgery. Had he not picked up the phone and called us, he would have had a low quality, subpar doctor and would have paid $4,000 for it. Now he got the best orthopedic surgeon, chief of orthopedic surgery at UF Shands, top hospital for knee surgery, one of the top. I think they were in the top 70 percentile. And he got $2,500 from the carrier, a total of $3,500. That was a win-win for us. That put smiles on our face. Those are the types of things we like to do. So the more and more I see of those that we accomplish every day, that's success to us. And in terms of where we're going,
growth.
I'm sorry, Matt?
Projections for growth in the next year?
We're looking at expanding the products. So, of course, there's different costs. As you know, there's a company out there called GoodRx that measures costs. But that doesn't work within the healthcare system. I'm not sure if you know that. So if you go down to the pharmacy and you need your blood pressure medication and you have your insurance card, a lot of times you can go and you'll see that you're paying more under your insurance than you are with the GoodRx card.
Yeah.
Because GoodRx is giving you the rebates. I actually had an experience like this with a member where we lobbied the insurance company and say, listen, why are we having to pay more for the drug through the insurance than through GoodRx? And if we use the GoodRx coupon, why can't we submit that receipt for reimbursement or so it goes towards our deductible and co-insurance? So it aggregates, right, against our out-of-pocket expenses. And you can't do that today. So I think that moving into areas of being able to price out drug costs, there's specialty drug costs, things like Humira. I'm not sure if you know the cost of it. If you ever look on GoodRx, I mean, it's between $500 and $6,700 a script. You may today hire an employee and you hire them at $55,000 salary and they're on Humira. Well, guess what? That's actually costing the company another $65,000. That employee is actually costing you $120,000, but you think that you employed them for $55,000 because all of that is hitting the insurance. So I think drug costs are one of the highest places that's going to influence medical cost and the cost of care in the future. So I think that we're going to expand into that is one area. And then another area is creating possibly what we call a discount medical provider organization. So there's a lot of things that people and our members need outside of their health insurance and can't get access to it. So such as rehab and a similar story. I dislocated my shoulder. I live in North Miami, Florida. The closest place for me on my health plan to get rehabilitation was in Doral. That's an hour and 50 minutes for a 20-minute rehab appointment. I can't do that 5 days a week. It just doesn't make sense. So I ended up paying out of pocket cash, and I negotiated a deal with a local rehab therapy place and paid them cash, and they gave me 30% off. I said, you know what? That could be a business. Yeah. Having discounts for easier access. So I think that's a challenge. just many challenges out there and many products we look at. But those are certainly two that we're eyeing right now in terms of product development.
Interesting. Well, I think it's one of those businesses that's not going away. So if you could find out a way to make it better and easier to navigate, we keep using the word navigate, which is what navces is, right? Navigate.
That's how the name came. It came out of navigation and access. We just chopped it in half.
Yeah.
Because and the other part is, access is huge here. I talk about the navigation, but we had a member, a lawyer at a law firm locally, that woke up with, at the time he didn't know it, but it turned out after we had got him the right care and got him an MRI of his head, he had a brain tumor in the ear. It was causing him dysphoria. By the way, they put him in a hyperbaric chamber for 4 days that he never needed to sit in because they thought it was a pressure issue. Turned it out being a brain tumor. But within I think it was within 42 hours of that, 48 hours of that, we had this gentleman on with 3 experts in the United States on that particular brain tumor, which is the most common. We had him on a Zoom call with this guy at the University of San Diego that's the top doctor at treating those. But that's the type of access we can bring to people is this member could have never picked up the phone and had 3 centers of excellence Zoom calls back to back within that amount of time, which we did for him. So the access part, it's great to know who to go to, but now you have to access them and get through to them. And do it timely, not in 6 months. People want to, in a panic situation where you're dealing with a, treatment that could save your life, you don't want to sit around for 6 months before you can see that physician.
Absolutely.
And that's some of the specialties we do. And that's really where our tradecraft with our medical director comes in. I mean, he could pick up the phone and talk to any hospital administrator and make things really move for the patients. And that's where a tremendous value of what we bring to the table does.
Can you leverage this model and software for the pet industry?
It would be a great model for the pet industry, as a matter of fact. The pet industry, it would actually be a genius model to look at, especially because there's 1 or 2 providers out there in the pet industry that really monopolized it. And then the rest is mom and pop. And yeah. I would tell you that's a simple model. We just navigate you to most of the mom and pops and away from the institutional, and you're going to see a price savings right there. But yeah, that would be a great model. I don't know how we would get pricing for every independent pet.
Yeah, it'd be tough.
Vet. It would be hard to get the data. It all comes from data. So
people are selling data. Somebody's got it. Yeah, somebody's got that data.
Whoever's got it is sitting on a gold chest.
Yeah.
Now it just takes 100 data scientists to put it together in the right format to make the common person be able to understand it.
Sure, no big deal, right?
No big deal.
We're gonna let you out of the Wolff Den with the same question everybody gets. You get 24 hours to spend with anybody in the world, but they have to be alive and you can't be related to them. Who would you choose, and what would you guys do?
Gosh, because I was gonna say Ronald Reagan, but he has to be alive. And I'm sure most commonly everybody wants to say Elon Musk these days. Right?
Musk is a popular answer. I got to get this. I'm working on the final list of where this is episode 289. Musk is up there. He's probably definitely top 10, maybe top 5. Obama, I think, is number 1.
Wow.
But there's none that's been like 20, None.
Yeah, I would say that if it had to be a person alive, I think he's the most intriguing individual alive to me. I think his ability to create billion-dollar companies, I just, what is in his mind and what he's been able to accomplish in such a short period of time on this planet is absolutely astounding. From rocket ships to cars that are autonomous and going to be able to drive themselves. I mean, if you think of his influence in terms of every country, I mean, he's changing economies, he's changing the world, he's changing the way we see things. So it would definitely be with him. And I think I'd like to sit down for the day and make it more of like a vacation experience. Not something we do in an office, but maybe sit by a pool, right? Where we have fresh fruit and it's chill without any influence, where I could just talk to him one-on-one and really dig into his brain and understand where that capability comes from, just to do what he does. It's phenomenal.
He's a remarkable human being. I'm high on his, high on him for the whole Twitter stuff that's going on. But, I think that's more of a street smart versus, book smart type of thing. There's
Certainly
no
wasn't
arguing
a financial thing for
no.
him.
I mean, there's no arguing his brilliance. There's no arguing his brilliance. But, now you start to look at the other stuff for me. But it's a great choice. He's on the list. If we have enough money and power and influence, we can make any of this happen. But someday I hope to make it happen for some of our – maybe we'll just have an event with Elon Musk, and everyone who chose Musk on this show is going to attend it. And you're on the list now.
That would be awesome.
Check out navces.com. Find them on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. If you have any questions on how they can help your company and employees save money, but also get better care.
I appreciate it, Matt. Thanks so much for having me. Can't wait to see you again. Yeah, everybody stay healthy.
We'll talk soon, and we got another episode next week. So have a great weekend. Go Panthers. Do something fun, do something nice, do something good, and we'll talk to you guys later.
You got it.